that shit.
Welcome to Trash Talk MMA.
Smile on my face, behind my back, and talk trash.
The #1 podcast for news and insight that matters in the world of mixed martial arts. Brought to you live and unfiltered from all four corners of the globe by MMA aficionado Antoine Peltier.
Yo, and welcome to the Trash Talk MMA podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Peltier, and today I have a very special guest on Skype, Mr. Dana Blouin, MMA referee, MMA fighter, PhD student, technologist, and self-proclaimed nerd. Am I correct on all the points there?
I think so. I think you got them all.
Okay. It's great to have you on the show, Dana. The reason I wanted to get you on here is I had Full Metal Dojo's founder and CEO, Jon Nutt, on the show last week, and his opponent still wasn't determined for FMD5. And I think the next day after I recorded him, it was announced that you and him would be facing off on May 9th in Bangkok in what promises to be a slobber knocker? I mean, what are we looking at here?
I think that's a very scientific term. Slobber knockers. This could even be as great as two slobber knockers.
Okay, so we have tons to talk about. You're studying your PhD here in Thailand. You got all sorts of interesting stuff going on. You're a vegan. There's all sorts of madness. You're almost like the antithesis of Jon Nutt on multiple points in life, it would seem, in terms of I think of diet and lifestyle, etc. And I want to know how we reconcile mixed martial arts into your studies and your lifestyle. So what brought you to MMA, and how are you involved with martial arts in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so I fought 10 years ago, MMA 10 years ago as a professional in the States, and I had been doing grappling tournaments for a while before that, doing pretty well, grappling some high-level guys, going to some pretty big tournaments. But yeah, so I came to Southeast Asia, and really a lot of my involvement with MMA here stems from meeting Jon Nutt. I was training at a gym on Thomasite University's campus, Uchima MMA, and they hosted a tournament, an amateur tournament, like a one-day amateur tournament, like 100 people showed up to fight, and they had like crazy weight classes and dudes wearing headgear, like fighting MMA. It was wild. And Jon and his partner Rich showed up, and we met and kind of kicked it off, and he was like, hey, if you want to keep doing the official thing, come meet our head guy, Oliver Kost, who's become also a really good friend of mine and kind of like a mentor in the official space, is super knowledgeable official person for MMA. And we just got to know each other through that. And, through that stemmed me reffing fights for Full Metal Dojo, reffing at Boxing World in Pattaya for a Sen Fighting Championship. And I've been reffing with Mima down in Malaysia for Malaysian Invasion for the past month. So, yeah, it's kind of like where my involvement with Southeast Asia MMA has kind of picked up and kind of where it's at. And now it's to this point where Jon wants to fight on his card, and he had a fight set up with Musa Kanti from Phuket,
who I just had on the show last week, and it was awesome because I got Jon's version of how that fight fell apart, and I got Musa's, and it's not the same story at all.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna shit disturb a little more with that as well.
So that fell through, and when that fell through, I offered to Jon to step up and fight him on the last card.
Okay.
And he was just like, dude, I've already turned that page, man. Musa got hurt. I ate a fucking cake, and I'm not ready to do it.
It wasn't a vegan cake, right?
Yeah, it probably was not.
Awesome. So let's. I'm always interested. I worked on the. We talked a bit offline. And I'm a bit of a geek too. I worked in video games for 15 years, and I actually had the opportunity when I was working. I was the audio director on UFC Undisputed 1, 2, and 3 for THQ.
Oh, nice.
And so it was my job to record all the voices in the game, all the voice talent. So of course I worked with Rogan and Goldberg and Buffer and Bas Rutten and Stephen Quadros and Bas Quadros, Lenny Hart. But then I also had the privilege of recording the referees. So I worked with Eve Levine and Herb Dean and Yamasaki and all the guys that are really well known. And you're actually the first guy that I'm talking to since I've launched my show that's a referee. How did you get into refereeing, and do you have any sort of official credentials for that?
I have no credentials whatsoever. So what happened was, they had the tournament at the gym I was training at, amateur tournament.
Where were you living?
I was living here in Thailand.
Okay.
So
you weren't reffing in the States.
I had done like some grappling tournaments and stuff like that, and little things, but never anything like a full blown, like anything official,
okay.
Right? And and they just kind of asked me at the tournament at my gym, like, hey, would you do this? Ref the fights. I was like, sure, and I kind of looked some stuff up and read a few things, and that was kind of like my jumping into it, kind of like crucible by fire. And then when I met Oliver, Oliver was like, all right, do one amateur fight at Full Metal Dojo and let me kind of evaluate you. Okay. And working with Oliver's just
who's Oliver?
Oliver Cost. He's so he refs in 1FC. He's the head official for Full Metal Dojo. So
okay.
He runs the show. He's also the head official at Mima, where I'm reffing right now.
Oh, okay, and, excellent.
So Oliver's just super knowledgeable and like he's like really like a great like approachable guy. And so one of the best things about kind of working under him as an official and a referee is that he gives a lot of very constructive feedback and really helps you to kind of improve your game and correct mistakes. So I know he's kind of been like the one who's kind of like really helped me kind of go from being this dude that reffed like an all amateur tournament in a parking structure in Thailand to being able to ref on a much bigger stage and kind of like helping me develop that skill set along the way.
That's interesting because that's a lot of responsibility. And I think, if you when you look at, when the UFC travels around or any major promotion, how regulated it is, and you've got an athletic commission and they're the ones hiring the referees, and there's a whole protocol in place. I can imagine it's pretty wild in Southeast Asia to be doing this, right? Like, yeah, it's probably a little grimier and there's probably a little bit more leeway. But you still have that responsibility of fighter safety.
Yeah, that's the number one responsibility, is making sure the fighters are safe. But I think that's really where, Jon does it right in that he gets Oliver to handle all of that. Jon doesn't have input in that. I mean, Oliver is in charge of all the officials. And Oliver has done something smart where he's put together a team of guys. So like when someone needs a professional event with officials and judges, Oliver can pull those guys together and make sure that he oversees it, and kind of make sure everything kind of runs in place. And he's got the experience. I mean, he's doing 1FC now for a while, and
they're not dicking around. So I mean, if he's good enough for them, that's great that Jon's able to have him on board on Full Metal Dojo. Yeah. Awesome. So how many fights have you reffed? I mean, how deep is your career as a referee?
So it's only been like a year now. So I've done 2 shows with Full Metal Dojo. I've done 3 amateur tournaments, which that's probably the majority of like my refereeing experience is like those 3 amateur tournaments here in Thailand. And then another professional event up in Pattaya, Boxing World, which I got to do. And right now I'm doing the amateur stuff with Mima down in Malaysia.
Okay.
Then to like we did the tryouts in Johor, Kuching, Penang, Sava's coming up. So doing all that. So that's the amateur stuff gets you a lot of experience quick. I mean, the first one I did like 35, 40 fights in one day, and you have to go back and critique yourself. I didn't really know a lot of guys in the scene at the time, and in Southeast Asia, here in Bangkok area specifically. And so I had to kind of go back and look at film and kind of go over that myself. And by the time I did my second amateur tournament, which I had already worked with Oliver and Jon at that point, and I was able to kind of go back and talk to them, and they were both there, and they gave me feedback, and you're kind of able to make small adjustments as you go. And that's the important thing for me, is to be able to learn and grow with it and make sure that I'm always doing the right thing or in the right position. You don't want someone to get hurt while you're in there being in charge, and you don't want to cost someone a victory because you made a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, listen, as fans, we know how much of a delicate balance is there, and the fans they're much more critical of when a fighter robs them of entertainment value than a fighter of a few neurons, a few brain cells. So, and I'm sure that's a fine line, and it's interesting. You watch some fights where the referees had to go a little bit long time, and you're like, was he looking at that like a fan or as a referee? You know?
Yeah, a lot of times, you know, when you're in there, you see it, like, you know, and you know, I have this perspective now that I've seen it both ways. Is, you know, there are guys who are looks like they might be taking a lot of damage, right? They might be on the ground, especially like in Full Metal Dojo, right? They have soccer kicks to the head, you know, knees to the head on the ground. But, you know, guys are blocking it with their hand, and, you know, maybe you don't get that on the camera angle, that or something like that. So you have to judge, though. I mean, is he getting kicked so hard, but he's blocking it and it's hurting him? So you have to kind of ask yourself, like, you know, when is the right time to step in? And, you know, that's always something I'm always looking to get feedback on from my peers in refereeing, is because you want to make sure that you're keeping people safe, but at the same time you're not affecting the outcome of the fight.
Yeah, or robbing the fighters also of the ability to contribute what they want to contribute in the fight. It's a fine line, man. And it's funny, you know, I've you know, working with Herb Dean, I know what's interesting with him is, hey, you know, he's got a school up in Pasadena, and he trains people to be refs for MMA. And I know John McCarthy does the same thing. Have you ever considered if you wanted to up the ante of really following a formal program with some guys like that and get in on some big fights?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of happy with, you know, where it is for me now. I mean, it doesn't take a ton of my time away. You know, I have other areas I focus on. I know Oliver has some courses coming up, and I'll probably try to jump in on some of those with him that he'll be running, kind of similar to training referees and going through some things. But yeah, I have to judge it as it goes. I haven't looked at refereeing in a long-term kind of perspective, other than, you know, next couple of years. And so where do I want it to be in the next couple of years? I constantly want to improve. Do I want to invest the kind of resources and time it would take to, say, go to like Herb Dean's school in Pasadena and spend time there doing a course with him, studying with him? I don't know if I'm at that point yet.
Yeah. What's interesting about how you got into this is that you didn't follow a course. You could kind of just jumped into the fire. What sort of qualities do you feel somebody should have if they'd like to, you know, if they're interested in becoming an MMA referee and don't really know how to go about it? Like, what would you say they should have as qualities, and what would your advice be to get people in the door?
I would definitely say, you know, have experience, you know, at least training, because you need to, this, especially in MMA, there's so much that you have to know technically, from striking, from grappling to control, you know, and how different people are going to respond to things. That, and you need to be confident. I mean, honestly, you need to make a call and stick with it. I've seen some guys that kind of waver, or they don't have the confidence to make the stoppage when it needs to happen. You know, I've seen that, you know, only been doing this a short time, but you still see that. So, but definitely knowledge, and you have to have confidence. You know, and you have to be able to, you know, go out there, and you're the one who's in control, basically. It's the fighter's fight, but you're the one who has to decide if it stops, you know, if it's going to keep going. You know, I've seen referees that have to make very difficult decisions if they're going to stop a fight between rounds. You know, like that's not an easy call to make. A guy's trying to get up off the stool. Yeah, it's an unpopular
call.
Yeah, a guy's trying to get up off the stool, but, you know, you see something in them that tells you have to stop it. You know, guys have to make that call. And if you don't have, the knowledge to kind of, if you haven't seen that, and having been around, you know, the sport for a while, like I fought back in 04, 05, or 05, 06, something like that. But I've been grappling since like 01 and doing submission tournaments.
Okay.
I'm 36.
Okay,
36.
Yeah, I was going to just ask.
I'm 2 years older than John, I think.
And I'm 3 years older than you. So let's shift gears and go into your fighting career. I love it because when I go into Sherdog, your profile looks like a James Bond villain. You're like Spectre dude. It's just like a black outline silhouette, and there's no stats, like no age, no height, no weight class, and your only loss is marked as having lost at the 0-second mark of the first round by knockout. So I'm like, did you get snuffed like Heath Herring for kissing the guy, or like? Do you remember that fight where that Japanese dude kissed Heath Herring in Pride, and then he just flatlined him at the stare down?
That guy's nickname was actually Kiss, wasn't it? His nickname was Kiss.
It?
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's just
I think he had if I recall, he had like a reputation for doing that to dudes.
That was awesome because he just goes lip to lip, and you see Heath Herring say like that was wrong and that has consequences, and then just blasts him on the point of the jaw. The dude just dropped like the Twin Towers, dude. It was brutal, man.
The best part was afterwards, he carries her. He's like, he kissed me like this. Like,
I know, yeah. He literally smooched him on the lips. Anyway, yeah, I'm sure the guy won't do that again. But yeah, so I was curious. That obviously that's a what do we call that? A clerical error on Sherdog's behalf.
No, I think that's probably the promoter, right? The promoter has to upload that data. Back in 2004, I don't
even know, how does that work? Like, how does Sherdog keep track of all these friggin' fights, man? Like, there must be so much errant data just flying all around, and people are always bitching. Like, everybody I have on the show, I've had a lot of up and comers and a lot of guys who are on the point of breaking out and getting into the UFC or ONE FC or Bellator, and every single one of them has a gripe with their Sherdog record. It's like, that wasn't a loss, or I have 2 wins. They're calling those amateur fights, and they were pro. But I mean, come on, it must just be a gong show to manage that shit.
I wonder if there must be a centralized database, because you see the same information reported across multiple sites, right? Like, I think it was MMA Fighter used to mirror Sherdog's site, so I don't know if Sherdog is actually.
Yeah, or there's another one I see a lot of, like Tapology or something it's called, or there's. Anytime I work with a dude, you Google the guys. I Googled you. I Google everybody, and it's like, hey, who the fuck am I dealing with here, right? I want to come a little bit prepared. I end up just being like, you know what, all this shit's dodgy. Let's just get him on the show. We'll iron out all the details where we got him on there.
Yeah, I think there must be some type of centralized database. I actually met a guy in Malaysia, Dave Hewitt, who he has like 12 fights or something like that, and Sherdog was only showing him as like 1-0 or something.
Yeah, in general, they tend to have less than obviously more, and I think that's where a lot of people have problems, or they consider amateur fights pro fights, or vice versa, and some people just are up and my record's 8-2, it's not 6-1.
Well, he told me he had to go back and like get like the full fight records from the promoters, because he's from like Alabama or Mississippi or like some southern backward state like that. And he was like fighting in barns and stuff.
Yeah, he's like, what was the friggin' bookkeeping there, dude? Like,
yeah, exactly. So he had to go back and get like old video, like VHS tape video, and like digitize it and like record the whole fight card with results and send it to Sherdog. And he said if he did that, they would add the fight.
But you got to even ask yourself, like, what are the resources at Sherdog to go through all the people's crap that they're sending? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
that's why
they must be getting
some centralized database where there's a standardized way to submit that data. That's the only way.
No, but anything in there that needs to be commission driven, you know what I mean? Otherwise, it just doesn't count, guys. Chalk it up to amateur fights, man. If you're fighting a bull in a barnyard, that's like knocking out farm animals. That doesn't count, dude.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, but yeah.
So what's your record at?
It's my record's legit now.
Okay, yeah, you are 2-1 then, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I've never had any amateur fights.
Okay.
My first fight was a pro fight.
Okay.
Completely by accident. I mean, I was training, I was grappling at the time, and there was a guy in my gym who was fighting for like a belt at like 135 or something like that, and they were putting together the card for this organization, WFL, out of Massachusetts. And as I recall, I mean, a heavyweight had dropped out of a fight. And the guy who I fought, Rich Mitchell, I mean, at the time, I think I had seen him fight like 5 or 6 times. And I think now his record's like 4-1 on Sherdog. So that's one of those, those error things. Yeah, and so, and they were like, they had called up my gym like, hey, do you have any heavyweights who can fight? And I wasn't really interested in fighting at the time, but the gym owner was like, hey, think about it. It's a little bit of money, get some experience. I kind of like mulled it over, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. But I was like, I was training for like a big tournament that was coming up, like a big submission tournament.
Okay.
But I was like so like nervous going into it. I remember the day of the fight, we were there, and I remember I was getting, hands wrapped and you get your cup on and everything, getting gloved up, and like as soon as the cup got tied on and my shorts on, I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom. My trainer's like, no,
it's not going to happen. We're not going to go in there twice, especially after you just pissed, right?
Yeah. And so like after that fight, I was so nervous. We had a game plan and everything. It totally went to shit as soon as the bell rang, right? And I get in there, and it was like an 18-second knockout or something. I knocked the guy out, and it was in a ring. It wasn't in a cage. And as soon as it was done, I tried to like get through the ropes to run out to the bathroom. I thought I was gonna puke. I had to piss. I have like all these feelings going on, and my chair's like, wait, it's not over. You gotta raise your hand. You gotta do all this stuff. He's gonna like walk me through it.
Awesome. So what'd you do? You just fucking clenched your butt cheeks, or lifted your hand, and then announced out of there when you were done.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Hilarious.
And like literally, like as soon as like my hand went down, I boom through the ropes, went right to the back.
Yeah, no post-fight speech, right?
No.
No thanking the sponsors. You wanted to thank the porcelain gods real quick.
Yeah, I think I only had like one glove off by the time I got to the bathroom too. It was bad.
The guy lifts your hand in the ring, and you got your cup in it, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Just like, no, that's just, dude, that's inappropriate. Awesome. So then your next fight you lost.
Yeah, so I got knocked out. So I fought Josh Dykeman, who I believe currently he's a heavyweight in Bellator.
Okay. So he went on to do some decent work.
He was on a tear at the time. I mean, he was like destroying everyone, and I kind of like, I was like, all right, let me try to step it up. I did pretty good in my first fight. I'm like, let me step it up. And the guy who owned WFL at the time, he was like, well, you can fight Josh for like a title contender shot.
Okay.
And winner of that fight will go on to fight. They were going to crown a champion at the end of this like pro tournament. They were like kind of running at the same time. And I was like, all right, I stepped up and I trained my ass off for that fight. And Josh just outclassed me. Just, I couldn't take him down. I couldn't keep him. I took him down, I think, once. I couldn't keep him down. He fought very smart against me compared to like how I had seen him fight previously. He had really made improvements to fight against someone my style.
So what was your style? Like what were what were your strengths going into your fights back then?
So I had grappling. I mean, I was probably like at the time I was competing at a fairly high level in submission grappling and no gi. Some okay, like kind of amateur boxing skills, a little bit of wrestling, okay takedowns, but really kind of more ground focused, more of a ground guy. And Josh, I had seen him fight before. I'd seen him fight live like 3 times, I think, and he was rushed in, always bulldoze guys. And I kind of was like, oh, he'll do that to me. I'll just let him rush in and I'll take him down. And I remember he came halfway across the ring and he waited for me.
Say, come get it. Come take me down.
I was like, okay. We traded some shots. I tried to get him down a few times. And I remember we were in an exchange, and I was just being stupid, firing back and forth with him, and probably chin up in the air.
Just in a bad firefight.
And I caught one right behind the air and went out. Like clean KO.
So I just hit you with an overhand or a hook behind the ear and just bam.
Yeah.
Had you ever been knocked out before?
I've been like flashed before, but I'd never been knocked out cold like that.
I guess you were out cold. Shit.
Yeah. Like that. Okay. I think like a minute or two later, I probably woke up and my coach was like, "Hey, wake up!" He was like shaking my back. I was like face down on the canvas, and I could
so
tell
you face planted.
Yeah, and actually, I saw the video. So he hit me, he knocked me out, and I kind of fell into him, like almost like I was shooting a takedown, like a sloppy takedown. I just fell straight forward, and he just kind of pushed me to the side and then hit me twice more.
Well,
and
that's always nice, right?
Oh well, he did.
You don't stop until the ref tells you to, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
as you know,
time, he might have not known. But at least for the first hit, I doubt he probably knew I was out, right? Because it was such a quick progression. But yeah, he's a nice dude. Actually, I talked to him after that fight, and I think I'd seen him like one other time after that. He was like from Connecticut, so not too close, but not too far. But yeah, nice guy.
That scenario that you just described. I'm right in the process of writing up a little Gonzaga versus Crow Cop 2 preview blog because it's coming up on Sunday. Saturday for the rest of the world, Sunday for us here in Thailand, and. I was just reviewing all his head kick KOs. He head kick knocked out Igor Vovchanchyn. But what you just described is, remember when Vovchanchyn, that's his best highlight reel, when I forget who the dude is, he fought a sort of tall, lanky dude, and he got him up against the ropes, and he just paced him with a shot, and then as the guy's going down, he's just dong, 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 dong. It's an infamous Igor, it's one of the best, it's the best Igor Vovchanchyn highlight, where he tags the guy's out on his feet, and as he's falling forward like a tree, just just plastering him left, right, and center. Brutal shit, man.
That was like a Scandinavian dude, wasn't it?
No, he was. I believe he was I think he's Ukrainian. Igor Vovchanchyn. Yeah.
No, I mean the guy he knocked out.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, possibly. I mean, cannon fodder. Who knows?
I used to love watching Vocianchin fight. And then remember when he went to like 205? Or like middleweight or something?
He never went to middleweight, and I think he would have just done incredible stuff at 185 because he was fighting heavyweight. He was why was he fighting Krokop? But it was pride.
And like was like 5'6".
Yeah, I mean the guy was just a short powerhouse, but I mean he was just dropping bombs on everything that moved. I mean great fighter.
I remember I saw him at the end of his career. He was just like shredded. He had dropped down a weight class. He looked great.
Yeah, and I remember. At Pride 34, which was the last Pride event ever, there was rumors that they were going to manage to get him and Vanderlei Silva finally to fight, and just didn't materialize. Basically after Pride 33, which is probably my favorite MMA event of all time. I mean, those Gomi versus Diaz, Sokoju knocked out Little Nog. Dan Henderson knocked out Vanderlei Silva. I mean, that it was just some of the most brutal upsets in the history and exciting fights in the history of the sport, all on one card. And that's when the UFC said, "Okay, stop, this thing's getting bought out now." Because I was in Vegas that card, Pride 33, and then Pride 34. They did
that's the one when Nick pissed hot too, right?
Yeah, for weed.
Yeah, but
in the greatest fight of all time, though. That's my favorite fight of all time. His fight against Gomi. Yeah,
and then they made that a no contest, didn't they?
Yep. Yeah. So stupid. Like, would you give me a friggin' break? They're trying to say that he was actually big during the fight. Like, get lost. Come on, man. And if he was, who cares? Who friggin' cares? Give me a break.
The whole weed thing, I mean, this is the thing, right? I think the whole thing with, testing positive for weed, right, is ridiculous.
It's just so lame.
It's a banned substance. But at the same time, Nick knows the regulations he has to come within, right? He knows he has...
He's a knucklehead, dude. He's a fucking knucklehead.
So, as a professional, he fails himself.
Exactly. But I mean, listen, he does that every fight. I mean, every fight, there's some sort of crap, whether he's not showing up at open workouts, whether he's not showing up at press conferences, or where he's getting busted for weed. And, it's just part of his mystique, right? If you want to even call it mystique. It's just part of his shtick, I guess. It's just part of who he is.
But, so I mean, if you want to get high, they've given you an allowable limit. I mean, you can get a doctor to tell you how much steroids you can take to be within the allowable testosterone limit, right? He can't get a doctor to tell him, hey, don't smoke another joint or you'll be over the limit on fight day.
Yep. Yeah, it's unprofessional. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and give babysitting lessons to Nick Diaz. No. The guy's a great fighter. No, I mean,
he'd whoop my ass, right? For sure. He'd whoop my ass,
dude. He's fought George St. Pierre. Of course, he'd whoop our ass. Weight classes are not an issue at that point.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, I'm a heavyweight, and he would make me look stupid. But at the same time, I love to watch him fight. I think he's an amazing fighter.
He needs to step it up, though, dude. Recently, he's been disappointing. I think his last really good fight, let's be honest, was against BJ Penn. And then after that, the Carlos Condit fight. You see his brother signed up to fight at welterweight to fight against Matt Brown today, dude, at 189. Yeah. The same card as Conor and Aldo. You're going to get Nate Diaz against Matt Brown. I think that's just going to go sideways so fast for Nate Diaz, dude.
Yeah, that's going to be a murder.
Oh, I mean, because if he's getting knocked out by Josh Thompson and and getting just brutalized by Rafael Dos Anjos, I mean, Matt Brown is going to do... Listen, prove me wrong. I love the Diaz brothers. Everybody knows that. Like, I love the knucklehead fighters, dude. But
if I can watch them fight and not have to listen to them talk, I'll be very happy.
Listen, I don't even mind listening to them talk. I get a chuckle out of it. But it's like, what I don't dig is how they're not fighting in their fights. They're doing this, bring me... They say bring it, then they get punched in the face. It's like, dude, you can't say bring it until you've put out. And, these guys are bringing it. That's why you're getting knocked out and you're losing fights. So stop putting that energy into all this taunting crap. And I'm dig the taunting. I think it's hilarious. But do it once you've lit the guy up and you're like, that's right. Come get some more. Or I'm going to just bring some more. Or you bring it. But you can't tell somebody to bring it if you're not bringing it. That's my point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Bring it and
then on top of it, losing the fights. Handedly. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Okay, so May 9th, exactly a month from today, You're fighting Jon Nutt. Now, there's all this talk in MMA about fighting your friends, fighting your teammates. What exactly is the relationship between you and Jon, and what mind frame are you taking into this fight?
Jon's my friend, right? No qualms about it. Me and Jon, he's someone who I consider a friend. We're close. You know, we've hung out outside of like Full Metal Dojo stuff. You know, we talk. I was chatting with him today online, and you know, the mind frame I'm bringing into this fight is, you know, sometimes it's just fun to punch your friend in the face and get punched in the face by your friend, right? I mean, look, I'm not trying to make a comeback as a professional fighter.
Yep.
Jon's not trying to be a professional fighter. You know, we want to have a prize fight. We want to have fun doing it. You know, and
will anybody be pulling punches here, or you just go out there with the same ferocity? Yep, good.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we're not. Look, people don't want to fight their friends, then you don't want to be world champion, in my opinion. If you're going to complain about, like, oh, I can't fight him, he's my friend, then maybe you shouldn't be a fighter. No, that's my personal take.
I mean, a lot of these guys, you know, they're not just their friends, they're training partners. I mean, they're people that they live with, and, you know, we know the bonds of brotherhood between fighters are deep and tight, you know.
Are deep, but if you don't want to fight, if it's your job, you should be able to fight, be willing to fight anyone, in my opinion. I mean, that's the way I've kind of always looked at it. And, you know, I get upset sometimes when guys are like, oh, I can't fight him. And, you know, we're training partners, we're friends. You know, make it work. If you're a professional, if that's your job, make it work.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm
sure that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but yeah, that's kind of the way I see it.
No, honestly, I think that the only people who share the other opinion are the fighters who don't want to take those fights. You know, as fans, we don't care. We want to see the number one guy against the number two guy. And if the number one and the number two guy, number three guy, they train together, sorry, guys. You know, just you do it for free in the gym, get paid to do it, and bring it on. You know? Yeah,
and make a show. You know, you guys, what's going to be a better fight? You guys know each other in and out, right? You guys are friends.
Yep. I mean, I want to see Uriah Faber against TJ Dillashaw. I want to see Chad Mendez against Uriah Faber. You know, I wanted to see Daniel Cormier against Cain Velasquez.
Yeah,
you know?
It'd be great fights.
They'd be great fights. You know, and if they know each other and they decide to be like, listen, okay, I know each other, and then, you know, that would make for some very interesting dynamics. I'm sure it could even make for some rather boring stalemates. But at the same time, knowing each other that well, I think you could see some interesting things play out. You know.
Yeah. I think you'll see that with Jon. I mean, him and I are both coming to entertain. We're both coming to put on a fight. I mean, and we're coming to fight each other. And at the end of the night, when it's done, we're going to pour glasses of bourbon, sip them, and, you know, have a good time.
Excellent.
You know,
well, I'm hoping I'll be there to share it. I can't 100% commit to this set in stone, but we've talked a little bit about it, and I'll still be in the area around the 9th. And I think to get out there and to kind of document this scrap between the two of you, and we could all cross-promote this, would be a lot of fun. And I expect it to be a spirited event.
Yeah, Fight Week is crazy for Jon, right? I mean, so, you know, he's the CEO, he's the promoter, he's the host. You know, like I said, he's the Robert Rodriguez of MMA, dude. You know, the filmmaker who just does everything. It's like he's holding the lights and the microphone, and he's got the camera strapped to his chest, and he's in the editing, and he's wiring up the special effects and the rigs, and it's crazy, man. Full Metal Dojo is legitimately the biggest promotion in Thailand.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of dudes doing it. Like, you know, Jon wears a lot of hats. So I think that's the other good reason that, you know, he's fighting me and not Musa, is that Musa's a light heavyweight, you know, and I'm a heavyweight. Jon doesn't have to worry about not eating that cake, you know.
Yeah, there won't be. I mean, do you guys actually have to weigh? Do you guys have to come in at 265? Like, what's the heavyweight weight class in Thailand?
It's 265, but neither of us are close to that. I mean, I'm bigger than Jon, but not by much. I'm like I think 119 kilos would be the limit. And like right now, I'm probably at like 112. You know, Jon might be at like 105, 106.
So how do you're a ref, you're a fighter here. Like, I mean, how tight are the commissions as far as these things are concerned in Thailand?
There's no commission.
So, I mean, these weigh-ins are conducted by who?
Jon. Jon brings everyone. So I've done amateur tournaments where I'm the guy conducting the weigh-in. I'm the guy there running the scale at amateur tournaments. Jon does his at a hospital. Jon foots the bill for everyone to get blood work, everyone to get a health check, a legitimate health check, not a doctor coming in like tapping you on the back, you look strong. Go ahead and hit
tapping
the scale.
knee on your kneecap, making sure your leg kicks, right?
Yeah. I literally, I've seen guys come in and the doctor looks at them and is like, oh, you look strong. Go ahead and weigh in.
And everybody here does, because everybody's training hard, eating good, and sweating out in the sun. You walk around Tiger Muay Thai, it's ridiculous. People are jacked up, 8 packs all over the place. Everybody looks great.
But Jon brings everyone to a hospital. Everyone gets a blood check at Full Metal Dojo. Everyone gets a legitimate health check, and they all weigh in at the hospital on official scales. So yeah, Jon and I will go through that whole process, and we don't have to make weight. I mean, we're both heavyweights, so we just show up and as fat as we are, and we're good. But yeah, it's what it is. I mean, that's. But like I said, Jon wears a lot of hats, so fight week will be crazy for Jon.
Yeah, I find it pretty admirable. I had a really cool talk with him, and I was actually at Full Metal Dojo 1. I went down there, and it was Brian Ebersol who was reffing that event. Okay. And yeah, it's funny because I like how he described it. He's like, it's a party with fighting.
Yeah, it is.
And I like how he's got his own lane, and he runs with it, and he flaunts it, and he puts it out there, and he's not trying to be something that he can't be or doesn't want to be. It's basically a big shindig with a cage in the middle of it, and people are drinking and having a good time, and
people are drinking this heavy metal, this big boobed Asian girls. Yeah. I mean,
what more do you need, right?
Jon's gonna announce all the fights up until our fight. I'm gonna ref a couple fights that night with the team. I'll probably judge a couple fights.
Well, I threw it out there. I'm gonna throw it out to him if he wants me to be the arena announcer just for you guys' fight. I'll do a mean Bruce Buffer impersonation, and we'll do it with style.
Talk to him. Let's see what he says.
Yeah, I will.
But yeah, it's like I said. So we're both gonna work like all night, and then we're gonna wrap up, glove up, get out there and fight. Punch each other in the face until we can't punch each other anymore. And then we're going to drink some whiskey, and we're going to hang out and, probably pass out.
Sounds like, what's his name? Tank Abbott throwback fight.
I'm hoping it looks a little bit better than one of those Tank Abbott YouTube sensations that I've seen.
You going to keep the beard for this one?
Yeah, so it's the Battle of the Beard. So I've been growing this for like almost a year. So my goal is to grow for a year. And so I do like this everyday photo thing to try to time lapse it. But yeah, Jon's got a beard going. We told Oliver, who's going to ref the fight, he's got to get a beard going.
All right, yeah. So you guys just got to look like a bunch of Vikings out there. Some Sons of Anarchy shit going down.
Roll up, just have a good time. I mean, I said, Jon's a dude. He's not just my friend, right? Jon's a guy who I legitimately have a ton of respect for, like on a lot of levels. He's done a lot of things. And, he's had to learn a lot of things himself. And, like, if you know Jon, if you get to talk to him, you get to see this about him, that, he's had to be kind of very autodidactic and pick these things up on his own.
Yeah, I mean, he sounds very adaptable. Like, he's like a chameleon and a ninja and a fighter and a hustler and an entrepreneur. And it's dope, man. All right, guys. I'd like to chat more with Dana on this call, but we're having terrible technical difficulties, so we'll have to do a round 2, let's say after FMD5. Listen, dude, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy. Next time we get you on the show, I want to dig into all the other kind of interesting facets of your life that we didn't get the opportunity to touch on here. But listen, man, train hard. Are you going to train hard?
This is the thing, right? So, like, Jon and I both have busy schedules. I get 1 day a week at the gym, maybe, and I try to run 2 or 3. So that's as much as I can fit in.
It's the Tank Abbott training regime. Minus the booze.
McDonald's. Yeah.
Do you drink?
I do. I drink occasionally. I'm not drinking now while I'm training.
Good.
But yeah, I think I don't eat meat or anything. I have a pretty strict diet. Which still keeps me at heavyweight, though, so can't be that strict.
Yeah, if it's just tons of vegetables, there's still calories in it, right?
Yeah.
God bless you, brother. Awesome. Listen, Dana, thank you for your time. How can people stay in touch with you? What's your presence on social media? I know you've got a blog, too, right?
Yeah, I got danablouin.com. You can follow some of my updates there. I'm on Twitter. I'm pretty active at Dana Blouin. That's really more for the geek fan out there, though, who wants to know about connectivity as opposed to punching people in the face. And anyone can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, all that jazz, Instagram.
Awesome.
Just type type in my name, there's not many of us.
There's not many of you. Some of them pop up this mysterious fighter guy with a black silhouette on Shirt Dog, and the other one's a bearded dude and a bunch of vegetables and pictures on Instagram, right?
Yes.
Awesome, man. Dana, thank you for your time, dude. I look forward to meeting you in person. I think we'll have a great time if I can get out to Bangkok for your fight. And no matter what, we'll do this again when the Thai fight gods are working in our favor.
For sure, man. Have a great weekend.
Awesome, man. All right, everybody. This was the Trash Talk MMA podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Pelletier, with MMA fighter and referee Dana Blouin. Signing off. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Trash Talk MMA podcast. Be sure to visit trashtalkmma.com.
Smile on my face, behind my back, they talk trash.
And don't forget to follow Antoine on Twitter at Trash Talk MMA. Let us know you're listening. Use hashtag Trash Talk MMA. Welcome to Trash Talk MMA.
Smile on my face, behind my back, they talk trash.
The #1 podcast for news and insight that matters in the world of mixed martial arts. Brought to you live and unfiltered from all four corners of the globe by MMA aficionado Antoine Pelletier.
Yo, and welcome to the Trash Talk MMA podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Pelletier, and today I have a very special guest on Skype, Mr. Dana Blouin, MMA referee, MMA fighter, PhD student, technologist, and self-proclaimed nerd. Am I correct on all the points there?
I think so. I think you got them all.
Okay. It's great to have you on the show, Dana. The reason I wanted to get you on here is I had full Metal Dojo's founder and CEO, Jon Nutt, on the show last week, and his opponent still wasn't determined for FMD5, and I think the next day after I recorded him, it was announced that you and him would be facing off on May 9th in Bangkok in what promises to be a slobber knocker? I mean, what are we looking at here?
I think that's a very scientific term, slobber knockers. This could even be as great as 2 slobber knockers.
Okay, so we have tons to talk about. You're studying your PhD here in Thailand. You got all sorts of interesting stuff going on. You're a vegan. There's all sorts of madness here. You're almost like the antithesis of Jon Nutt on multiple points in life, it would seem, in terms of, I think, of diet and lifestyle, etc. And I want to know how we reconcile mixed martial arts into your studies and your lifestyle. So what brought you to MMA, and how are you involved with martial arts in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so I fought 10 years ago, MMA 10 years ago as a professional in the States, and I had been doing grappling tournaments for a while before that, doing pretty well, grappling some high-level guys, going to some pretty big tournaments. But yeah, so I came to Southeast Asia, and really a lot of my involvement with MMA here stems from meeting Jon Nutt. I was training at a gym on Thammasat University's campus, Uchima MMA, and they hosted a tournament, an amateur tournament, like a one-day amateur tournament. Like 100 people showed up to fight, and they had like crazy weight classes and dudes wearing headgear, like fighting MMA. It was wild. And John and his partner Rich showed up.
Why and how that fight fell apart, and I got Musa said it's not the same story at all.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna shit disturb a little more with that as well.
So that fell through, and when that fell through, I offered to John to step up and fight him on the last card. Okay. And he was just like, dude, I've already turned that page, man. Musa got hurt. I ate a fucking cake, and I'm not ready to do it.
It wasn't a vegan cake, right?
Yeah, it probably was not.
Awesome. So let's. I'm always interested. I worked on the, we talked a bit offline, and I'm a bit of a geek too. I worked in video games for 15 years, and I actually had the opportunity when I was working. I was the audio director on UFC Undisputed 1, 2, and 3 for THQ. Oh, nice. And so it was my job to record all the. And
we met and kind of kicked it off, and he was like, "Hey, if you want to keep doing the official thing, come meet our head guy, Oliver Kost, who's become also a really good friend of mine and kind of like a mentor in the official space, is super knowledgeable official person for MMA. And we just get to know each other through that. And, through that stemmed me reffing fights for Full Metal Dojo, reffing at Boxing World in Pattaya for a Sen Fighting Championship. And I've been reffing with Mima down in Malaysia for Malaysian Invasion for the past month. So, yeah, it's kind of like where my involvement with Southeast Asia MMA has kind of picked up and kind of where it's at. And now it's to this point where Jon wants to fight on his card, and he had a fight set up with Musa Kanti from Phuket,
who I just had on the show last week, and it was awesome because I got Jon's version of how that